Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Boardmasters with me, Chris Mullins, and tonight I will be giving my review on the Isle of Cats. Now, we have featured the Isle of Cats in a number of gameplay videos and an unboxing on the channel already, so if you're interested in any of those, check out the playlist. But let's dive in. As always with my reviews, I'll be covering the same 5 categories as ever, so art, style and theme, component quality, accessibility, replayability and gameplay. And so let's start with the art style and theme. And this is an interesting one for me. Obviously the art style is gorgeous. I mean, we're a cat loving family, so any games that revolve around cats, and in particular very cute little cat polyaminos and having you rescue them is going to be a big winner in our house. And also love the artwork on the actual cards. I love the aquatic animals that are floating around the boat. Even the little rats are cute. So yeah, the art style is a big win for me. But the theme is a weird one. And basically, the narrative in the game is that Vesh Darkhand is coming to destroy the Isle of Cats because he's going to destroy the whole world, and you're there to rescue the cats. Which definitely feels like a narrative that's been bolted on to give you a reason to be catching cats, because I guess if you weren't given a reason, it would feel like you're cat poachers or something, which probably wouldn't go down well, whereas this way you're rescuing cute and cuddly kitties, which is much nicer than poaching them. But it just doesn't really make sense to me in that, okay, this big bad evil guy is going to destroy the whole world, but you're going to spend time and resources rescuing cats from an island to move them someplace else that Vesh is going to then try and destroy. And also then the fact that, okay, the cats that I haven't rescued, although there is a throwaway line about leaving supplies and rafts for these cats to float themselves off the island, basically it suggests that any cats that you don't rescue are going to die a gruesome, horrible death. And, you know, as someone who, as I've said on the channel before, I invest heavily in the narrative and in the story and the flavor text and everything, a game that has cute cuddly cats basically getting killed if I fail to rescue them, and a narrative that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of he's going to destroy the world, but we're not going to try and stop him, we're just going to rescue cats to move them someplace else they'll be at risk, is a bit of a, I don't know, it just grates on me a little bit. And I appreciate for a lot of people that'll be completely irrelevant, and you know, if you don't care about narrative or the flavor text and you just want to dive into the game, then I highly recommend it for that. But if for me you're a bit pathetic, probably is a decent word for that, everything's got to make sense, and to the point where you probably harm your own experience at times, then this does have a narrative that is a bit weird, and for me at least does actually harm the experience. But yeah, that's my opinions on the art style and theme. Going on to the components, they're absolutely lovely. I mean, the polyamino quality is good. The boats are very thick boards. The meeples are cute. The bag is a nice material. It doesn't feel cheap. Everything about the component qualities is nice. The fish tokens feel good. For a price point of around £45, that I'm more than happy with that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can always say that things could potentially be improved. I don't think things like metal coins to replace the fish really would improve the game in any way. And I don't even think dual layered player boards would help. I mean, there are some occasions, I guess, with the polyaminos, if you're fitting them in like that, sometimes they can stick a bit, but that is a very rare occurrence really for me. Most of the time they're fine, but it's just the odd occasion where I've had it where they've stuck a bit. But all in all, the components are really good quality, very happy with those. In terms of the accessibility, The initial setup takes a long time because obviously you have got a lot of these polyominoes, you've got the treasures, you've got the standard treasures, and you're going to have to invest a bit of time when you first open the game to get them all punched out. But once you've done that, they all, apart from the normal treasures, which you can just put in a baggie, all the cats and the rare treasures just sit in the main bag and they're there. They don't need any more setting up than just a quick shake. And if you're like me and you bag everything individually, so you've got the family mode cards in one bag, the solo mode in another, you've got the main card in another bag, you just pick the 2 or 3 card bags that you need for each game, put them on the table, shuffle the cards, get the tokens, like the baskets and the fish tokens in some trays, and away you go. It takes a couple of minutes at most. It's very, very quick, and teardown is very, very quick as well, because again, all these polyamino bits you're just putting straight back in a bag, other than the normal treasures. You've just got to be careful not to mix the normal treasures in with the rare treasures and the cats, which I have done, and then it's a pain in to try and sort it out. But other than that, as we've mentioned already, the price point is good. It's not a game that is overly difficult to get hold of. I believe it's available on Amazon. If you go on Board Game Prices, there's always usually a couple of websites that have it in stock. So it's not one that has a massive difficulty in terms of just getting hold of the game. And in terms of learning the game itself does not take too long, and it's not that hard to teach. I think it's very much one of those games that's easy to learn but hard to master, and I don't feel like I have mastered it. And I think maybe that as well has harmed my experience, in that I've played it a number of times but don't ever feel like I'm getting what I want to do done. But I'll come back to that in the gameplay. The fact that it has a solo mode and a family mode, which I've played both on the channel, which opens up the game for if I just want a quick puzzle on my own, or whether we want to play a game with Alex, or just me and Stace want to have a competitive experience, which generally means I am going to spend the night losing. But it can cater to a lot of different audiences, which again is a massive boon for any sort of board game and helps it get to the table. So that is accessibility, which again is a big win for it. And then we get into the gameplay, and for me this is another part where it kind of falls down, and I've sort of alluded to it already, in that particularly in the competitive game, the standard game, I don't ever feel like I'm getting anywhere near the amount of stuff I want to do done. I have this boat and I want to be close to finishing it by the end of the game. I want, kind of like Barron Park, where we've never played a game of Barron Park where at the end of the game anyone has had more than one free square left, and I want to have that sort of experience here, where you're pretty much filling your boat and then it's coming down to your lessons, how well you're doing on your lessons, how well you've arranged it so you haven't left gaps that have kept rooms or rats uncovered. But every time we've played it so far, even when we played the family game where you literally just pick what cat you want, we've never got more than about 4/5 of the boat complete, and that was the family mode. In the competitive mode it's generally closer to about 2/3, and it may well be that we're just not good enough at the game yet, but it just feels like it's a game where by the time you get to the end you're wanting it to continue for an extra turn or two, just so, because you don't feel like you've done enough. It feels like the game's over too quick, and instead of battling each other to get the most optimal layout, you're battling the game to just frantically trying to get the cats onto your board, which is a bit of a hollow feeling for me at times. I don't want to battle the game mechanics in a competitive game. I want to play the game mechanics and play them better than my opponent, but it does feel to me, and again this may not be an issue for other people, but to me it does feel like I'm fighting the game more than I'm fighting my opponent at times. And again, this may be an issue because we've only played it at 2-player in terms of the competitive, and it can go up to 6 with the expansion, I believe, and that's obviously had an impact in terms of the sort of cards we're getting through, because there's a massive wedge of cards in the game, and if you're playing 2 players, then you're only getting through 14 cards a turn. And so in our experience so far, I don't think we've ever had a game where we've got more than 2 rare treasure cards or Oshax cards in the same game across the whole 5 rounds. I've never got 2 Oshax cats on the board in a competitive game yet. And yeah, again, that just feels a bit frustrating, and that because of the size of the deck of cards compared to the player count, you're just not getting the opportunity to do things that you want to be able to do. And that may well just be the limitation of playing the game as a lower player count, and I don't imagine that would be an issue at a higher player count, because obviously you'd cycle through the cards much quicker, you'd be passing them around constantly, so you'd have far greater opportunity at getting these rare treasures and getting the cards that you need. So again, pinch of salt for it, because it may well just be because we've only played at low player counts due to COVID and things, that is negatively harming the experience. And it is what it is. I'd love to play it again with a higher player count just to see how it differs when we have the opportunity. And yeah, I just kind of have alluded to it before. If it's a game where I'm saving cats from being brutally killed by an evil warlord, I want to be able to rescue as many cats as possible, not see 3, 4, 5 cats around, run off because of my failure and end up knowing they're gonna die. It's just for me, because I invest too much, and I appreciate it's my issue, but it does feel a bit depressing. And in our gameplay experience so far, I want it to be, as I said earlier, I want it to be a game about how well you deal with your layout in terms of these are your lessons, you're changing your strategy, you're gearing your strategy to complete the lessons that you've got, and you can flip and pivot and change direction in terms of what you're trying to achieve to match those lessons to maximize your points. And that's the game that I was sort of expecting Isle of Cats to be, but again, and it may be because we're just not particularly good at it yet, but every single game we've had in pretty much, well, in both the family mode and the co-op, it's pretty much always come down to how many rooms did you fail to fill. Whoever left the least number of rooms unfilled won every single game. And I mean, maybe that's the strategy of the game, that you just pretty much ignore your lessons and make sure you cover as many rooms as possible, and that's going to win you the game every time. But again, that just feels a bit empty and hollow, and isn't the gameplay experience that I would want. And I'm going to apologise, because I know this sounds really, really negative, and I don't necessarily mean it to be. It is a good game. We thoroughly enjoyed our games of it. It's just some little bits that have grouped together to form a bit of a negative feeling around the game. And I'll be honest, at this point, if I'm going to play a Polyamino game, I'd rather pull out Baron Park than Isle of Cats, purely because in Baron Park I feel like we always get everything done, and it comes down to how well you've done it in terms of who wins. Whereas Isle of Cats, it doesn't feel to me yet like winning and losing is defined by how well you organise your cats, because it's a strange one, because that is what defines the game, but because you're battling the mechanics, you're not getting the stuff that you want to do done because the game doesn't let you do it. It feels a bit frustrating. But I do still think it is a very good game. I would never turn down a game of Isle of Cats. And I think in terms of the score, I would still give it an 8 out of 10. I think it is still a very good game. It's very accessible. The art style is gorgeous. The component quality is great. The gameplay is fun. I just think probably if we're going to play it more often, we would get rid of the round token and just say, right, the game, as soon as one player finishes their boat, that triggers endgame, and we would just keep playing to that point because I think we would have a more enjoyable experience of it that way. But again, that is just us. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it's going to go for you. So I would definitely recommend giving it a go because it is a gorgeous game that is very fun, and I appreciate that I probably just sounded more negative than I necessarily meant to be, but I wanted to just try and explain the issues that I have with it, because I think when I came into this game I was expecting it to be up around a 9 out of 10. The art style is gorgeous, rescuing cats, we're a cat family. I expected to fall in love with the game, and the little bits that I've spoken about so far have basically stopped that happening, and that's just a little bit disappointing for me. But it is still a very, very good game that I would highly recommend you try out for yourself. And, let me know down in the comments below if you disagree and what we're doing wrong. Give us some tips onto how we can maybe play the game in a way that would better suit what we're looking for from what I've said so far. But that is my review of Isle of Cats. As I've said, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. And I'm going to leave it there. So thank you very much for watching. Look after yourself, stay safe, and have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye now.